side. Which one's the artery?
The one on the left.
So the left one, this whole thing is the artery. This is blood. So all that's the artery. This is the vein, smaller tunica media. Right? So what would be right there?
Tunica interna.
Tunica
Intima.
right here.
Tunica externa.
Tunica externa. This one.
Tunica media.
Tunica media. How about this?
Tunica externa.
Tunica externa. How about this right here?
Tunica
Tunica media.
media.
And then this way.
The lumen. Oh, tunica intima.
Tunica intima. So all of them are there. But this is a good one because it's side by side. So remember, they're going to make sure that they have both in the field of view. One is kind of a smaller, more muscular looking circle, and that's going to be the esophagus. Okay, you know what? Find one that's a little dark. All right, so on the hint page, it says for the trachea, it'll ask for the perichondrium on the outside edge of the ring, of the cartilage ring, because it's wider there, so it's easier to distinguish. And again, we'll be looking for lymph nodes. I already showed you one, but I'll show you one on this. That way when we get to the GI tract, it's not going to be some surprise. So this right here is the big trachea, all of this right here. So we've got a few structures on here to go through. So if we work from our way kind of out from the lumen, so here's the lumen here, our first layer of epithelium is going to be the what is this layer?
Is that the
Pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium, or also known as
PSCC?
PSCCE. So all of this that lines the lumen, PSCCE. All right, so what did we learn comes after the epithelial layer? We learned in the tongue, did it come after that? We had some other places. What comes after the epithelial layer? No. Lamina propria. Lamina propria. So on this, it's hard to distinguish, and I'm going to try to find another better slide on this. But here's our PSCCE. Right underneath it's going to be the lamina propria. Lamina propria. And it goes all the way around. All the way up. It just gets lost up here. And the reason why it's going to get lost up here is because of that perichondrium. The perichondrium is on the inside and on the outside of the hyaline cartilage. So we're going to ask, that's why we ask the perichondrium on the outside, because it's easier to see. We're not going to get mixed up with the lamina propria. It's just one place you have to focus. So PSCCE, lamina propria. Then we have the trachealis muscle, which is this one right here, and that connects between the two cartilage parts. Move that up here a little bit. So here's this muscularis trachealis muscle right here. And then the hyaline cartilage, you should remember this from the first semester, all of that over there. And then the perichondrium again on the outside edge of our hyaline cartilage. We have this other layer, and that's going to be the perichondrium. Now for the, okay, we don't, never mind. We don't have that one. Good. Never mind. So perichondrium, hyaline cartilage, lamina propria, closer to the PSCCE. So it won't be labeled out here. It'll be closer over here. PSCCE, trachealis muscle. Okay, now the issue with this one, if you notice the hyaline cartilage doesn't kind of make a complete circle there, so it's a little odd. But we got the PSCCE, got the lamina propria, the hyaline cartilage, the the trachealis muscle, and then let me move it down. And then to the outside, again, the hyaline cartilage, the outside is where we're going to ask that perichondrium. What's this?
Adipose.
So perichondrium, hyaline cartilage. What was this? Was it lamina propria, PSCCE, and at the bottom it was the
trachealis.
trachealis muscle. There we go, trachealis. So this whole muscle looks like muscle. It is muscle. Trachealis muscle, all the way across. All right, so that's the trachea. Behind the trachea is the esophagus. There's our esophagus. So the esophagus is also going to follow our same types of layers that our stomach and colon and the ileum are going to follow. So the mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and adventitia. So in each one of those layers are going to be a structure, except for the submucosa. It's just submucosa. So don't worry about connective tissue and blood vessels. You won't be asked anything like that. It might, bare minimum would just be pointing at the layer and you choosing submucosa. But in the mucosa layer, that's going to be our one that lines the lumen. On the hint page, on the esophagus, it says it may have some mucus in the lumen, so ignore it. So this is mucus. So this is not a true layer of anything. That's mucus. So that means we start here. So what is this layer? Stratified squamous. We also saw stratified, we saw pseudostratified in the tongue. So this is stratified squamous here. And then it's going to get a little tricky. So the lamina propria is going to be right beneath this layer. So it's going to be right here. But then right below that, here, is the muscularis mucosa layer. So I'm going to move it up one in just a second. So you can hopefully maybe see the separation between the stratified squamous, the lamina propria, and the muscularis mucosa. This right here represents that submucosa layer. There's not a lot in it. Looks very kind of nothingness that's there. Submucosa. Sorry, submucosa right here. Then we get to the muscularis externa layer. There's a difference between this layer and this layer. Because we have a circular and a longitudinal. So this is our, it makes a
circle.
So this is our circular layer of the muscularis externa. This would be the longitudinal layer of the muscularis externa. And then for the very outer layer, and we hardly ever get to see that layer, that's the adventitia. It's also known as the serosa and the other digestive organs. But if it was ever pointing to the very outside edge, that's when you would want to choose adventitia. Of the 50 questions, not usually a popular one. And it would only be adventitia on the esophagus slide. I wish there was a better contrast, but I think I know I've got a slide. All right, so from here to where it gets kind of thicker down here, that's still part of that, what? Stratified squamous. Then underneath, I'll get out of the way, from here, and filling in this kind of section, thins out and thickens up, and thins out, and thins up. So this is going to be your lamina propria. And then these kind of areas that look kind of like blobs, big sections, that's your muscularis mucosa layer. So all of that. So it kind of looks like muscle, but it's not continuous. It does have some kind of edges to it in here. I do know it. Ha ha ha. Maybe. A little better. All right, so again, this would be mucus, not a layer. This would be our Stratified squamous. So then, do you see kind of like, this looks like sausage. So this
Yeah.
is like little sausage links. That's your muscularis externa. Sorry, muscularis mucosa. Oh my gosh. Muscularis mucosa. And then in between that would be the lamina propria. So any of this here, down here, goes around.
Like on the outer edge of the darker pink, is what you're talking about.
Well, at the end of the basement membrane of the stratified squamous.
Yeah.
So underneath that would be the lamina propria. And then we have the muscularis externa.
Right.
And then the submucosal layer, the muscularis externa layer, circular versus longitudinal. That's the esophagus. And the adventitia, again, on the outer edge. All right. All right, so let's look at the edge first. There we go. Okay, so this would be our visceral pleura. Okay, so the outer edge of this is all the lung. So visceral pleura. I really good spot. Should not have moved from it. All right, so if it's just pointing to the blank space, that's the alveolus. It'll say, what is the space at the end of the pointer? Alveolus is what you're looking for. These would be capillaries. You can even see a little blood inside of them. So that one over there, that one. So if it's nice and closed areas, that one way at the top, capillaries. Pretty easy. We did the visceral pleura. So the other thing, or those two things we have are the type 1 and type 2. So we're not going to get close enough to see if they're cuboidal-like or simple squamous-like. So instead, we're going to do it by how they are surrounding that alveolus. So if it's just in this kind of single line, single wall of an alveolus, that's where you're going to find the type 1 cells, the type 1. So anything that makes up the wall of the alveolus just by itself, type 1. So if it's pointing to anything just by itself, type 1. If it's pointing to where those lines intersect. So up here, if it's pointing to this intersection right here. Or if it's pointing to an intersection here, or an intersection here, or even here, that's a pretty bad one. How about here? So anywhere these lines intersect, that's where you're more likely to find the type 2 cells. So single lines, or what?
Type 1.
Type 1.
Where they combine,
Type 2.
type 2. And this this whole slide looks like nothing else. So you shouldn't have any problem distinguishing this as the lung. So space is the alveolus. Capillaries, they may or may not have blood in them. The visceral pleura at the very edge, and then our type 1 and type 2. All right. All right, so on the hint page, for the two major structures we need to know in the pancreas, the pancreatic acini versus the islets of Langerhans. So I think of it this way. The pancreatic acini is the sea that the islands sit in. So the islets are the islands, and the acini is the sea. So the acini is the background. So all of the background would be the pancreatic acini. The little islands, yes. Okay, so then that is an island. That's an islet of Langerhans here. Let's see very many of these. It's adipose, yep. The other stuff's adipose, yep. Okay, I do not see very many islands in here. Why are there so many? Oh, gosh. Sorry. Okay, so, still rough. So the acini, pancreatic acini, here's an islet of Langerhans. It looks so much better through your scope than it does up there. That's another one. Got it there. And then this, again, circle of cells would represent a duct, so the pancreatic duct. So anytime you have the circle of cells, duct. And there should be a few of those in here. Now that would not be one. It doesn't have that circle of cells. So that's what we're looking for, that circle of cells for it to be a duct. There's a couple of smaller ones in here, but nothing too fantastic.
Can you show an islet again,
Yeah.
please?
Oh, actually, that's that one. That one.
Is that one right there at the bottom?
This one?
Yeah.
Yes. Let me see if I got another one. Got a couple other pancreas lines here. What's that?
Island.
An islet. The whole thing's an islet. What's all this? Pancreatic acini. What's that?
Islet.
Islet. What's this? An
Islet.
islet. What could that possibly be? A
Duct.
duct, a pancreatic duct. What about that one? Yep, pancreatic duct. Okay. That's pancreas. Oh, hey. I've been looking. All right. Amazing. Okay. Bring it down so I can do it. All right, so that would be our bile duct there. And then, okay, so the spots that are here, this is the nucleus. So the cell around it would be the hepatocyte. So that, the yolk part would be the nucleus, and the egg part is the hepatocyte. So all of that, so they're kind of oddly shaped. They're not really consistent in their shape, but they're all over the place. So any of these are hepatocytes. Now, as far as the white winding spaces, they don't look like bright white. It's not like a clear whiteness to them. But anything that's going to be between these cells, and you can just follow the line, those are sinusoids. So any of those white winding spaces among the hepatocytes, those are sinusoids. They'd be kind of anywhere here. And remember that this is not necessarily a single layer, so it's kind of thick, so you'll have cells on top of cells on some of these. So your bile duct, any of these would be your hepatocytes. And then the spaces in between them are the sinusoids. That's the liver. Also doesn't look like anything we've seen. It's always good when they don't look alike. All right. Okay. Knock it off our list. Just like that. Okay.
Ooh, looking at tadpoles.
Ah, they're not tadpoles. What are they? Spermatozoa. Spermatozoa. So there's two things you have to know on this spermatozoa slide. Head is one, and that's the little dot. And tail is not an option, so it's flagellum, which is the string that comes off at the line. So the dot is the head, and the line is the flagellum. Spermatozoa. Done. Also doesn't look like anything else. I don't think you have that in your box. All right. So we'll do the stomach and ileum and colon then